Pozdravljam vas u 55 minuta. Hvala da pratite moj podcast. Moja današnja gošća je Olivia Maurel. Ona je francuskinja i Amerikanka, žena koja je glasnogovornica deklaracije iz Casablanke, snažnog pokreta koji je objedinio više od 75 pravnika iz cijeloga svijeta, koji se bori protiv surogatstva, odnosno bori se za globalnu zabranu surogatstva. Radi toga što surogatstvo iskorištava žene i jako škodi djeci. Olivia ima osobno iskustvo ili je rođena surogatstvom. Ona je ovih proteklih dana bila gost u Hrvatskoj, sudjelovala je na okruglom stolu o surogatstvu u Hrvatskom saboru, koju je organizirala zastupnica Vučemilović i ona je također osoba od koje možemo čuti iskustva ljudi koji su djece, koja su rođena na takav način. Evo, hi Olivia, thank you very much for joining me in this conversation. I have introduced you shortly, just with a couple of words. So thank you for everything you are doing on behalf of women and on behalf of children.
That's perfect. Well, I'm very happy to be here, and thank you for having me be able to talk and tell my story and maybe talk about more about surrogacy and how it affects the children and how it affects the women and how we have to abolish it.
You have a first-hand experience of surrogacy, but at the beginning, can you just tell us firstly what types of surrogacy we have?
Okay.
Because many people mix surrogacy with IVF or with other techniques, so maybe it would be good to explain.
I'm not so much as going to go into the techniques because we use IVF sometimes in surrogacy. But there are two names in surrogacy. There's traditional surrogacy and there's gestational surrogacy. Traditional surrogacy is when we use a surrogate. We use her eggs. So the surrogate is the birth mother, is the genetic mother. And then we use a donor's sperm or we use the commissioning father's sperm. And then we create the baby and then the baby is born and then the baby is given away to the commissioning parents. And that is how I was born personally. Then we have what we call gestational surrogacy, where it is a donor's egg or the commissioning mother's egg that is used to create the embryo. And we use the commissioning father's sperm or a donor's sperm to make the embryo. And then the surrogate will just be used as and I hate the word, I always say it, but we use her as an incubator. We just use the womb to have her carry the child through the 9 months. She has no
genetic or biological connection with the child.
She has no genetic or biological connection with the child, but I do believe that in this case it's still terrible for the child because that baby doesn't care about the genetics. He's going to bond with that mother throughout the 9 months, and when he is born and he is brought into the world, he is going to look for that mother at birth, and that is his mother. In the French dictionary, the mother is the one that gives birth to the child. So in some countries, that woman is recognized as the mother. In some other countries, she isn't. But for me, it is. It is always the mother that gives birth to the child.
And also what you said about bonding, even in the case when surrogate who carries the child is not genetically connected with the child can, I just recently read a study that child can hear sounds from the 18th week of development in the womb, and that the child recognizes the heartbeat of his or her mother, and this is why we can.
It goes beyond that.
Yes.
It goes. I mean, he's going to look for her smell as well because he can smell. He can hear her. He hears her voice for the 9 months. He is going to look for her milk because we know that a child is. It's funny because when you put a child on the stomach of mothers, they will slowly bring themselves up to the breast to breastfeed. So we know all of this. We know that that child is linked already with the mother. And even further, there are studies that were shown that stem cells are exchanged during the 9 months. So that baby is going to send out its stem cells to the mother, and that mother will carry the stem cells in her body for 30 years after the birth. So even if she is psychologically blocked, even if she says that she doesn't have any bonding with the child, even if we say that the surrogate can differentiate between a normal pregnancy and a surrogacy, she is linked to that baby for the next 30 years after the birth.
Yes. And what is about, we hear often in media, especially from the groups lobbying for surrogacy, we hear about altruistic surrogacy.
Yes.
And the impression is created that first, what is altruistic surrogacy? And then what percentage of surrogacy is altruistic surrogacy?
So we have two different types of surrogacies in the world. We have commercial surrogacy, which is paid. So the surrogate is paid, so with a large amount of money, usually in America, for example. It's a lot less, of course, in Ukraine and other countries. And that's the main type of surrogacy that exists, is commercial surrogacy. And then we have what we call so-called altruistic surrogacy, which is when the woman isn't paid directly for what she is doing. We reimburse all of her fees around the surrogacy, so health insurance, cell phone bills, it can be her rent. So she's paid, unfortunately, indirectly, but she isn't paid for the job that she's doing.
There is no money that she's given to carry the child or give a child away.
Exactly, but she is reimbursed from all the fees around it. So sometimes in these situations, we have poor women that do the altruistic surrogacy because their rent is paid. It's sometimes 800, I don't know, 800 pounds or 2,000, I don't know. Their rent is paid, their clothes are paid,
yes,
their food is paid. They live freely for 9 months. So, what is better? Not eating, not having a roof on your head, or doing a surrogacy and then having a roof on your head and eating? In some cases, women have to make that choice, and that's terrible, terrible.
And basically it is, in most of the cases, it is wealthy people or rich people ordering child, and poorer women doing this for them. Whether it is directly paid or indirectly paid, this is the relationship that is dominant. It is
always a rich couple that buys a child off of a poor woman. You have to have a certain amount of money to use surrogacy, even if it's altruistic, because you have to pay all of the fees and reimburse all of the surrogate's fees. You have to, on top of that, pay the agency. You have to pay the IVF. You have to pay the eggs. You have to pay the sperm in some cases. You have the lawyers also to pay.
Delivery
costs, hospital costs. I mean, you have to think about 100,000 euros minimum.
Yes, minimum. This is what minimum. I also read.
100,000 euros minimum, and that is not. I mean, I can't do it. I can't pay that price. I would never pay that price, of course, but normal people can't do it. It's always rich people that have that.
And when you say this, it is also so basically this relationship and this the way that women are treated is so different from what politicians and democracies proclaim.
Yes.
With regard to women. Now let's just touch for a moment women, not children. We will discuss this.
Well, the problem is that there's a lot of lobby for surrogacy, a lot. So
because there is a lot of money earned.
There's a huge amount of money that is earned. I mean, the market was $14 billion in 2022, and I think it's the New York Times or Forbes that did the
analysis
and it is shown that in 2032 this market is going to shoot up to $134 billion. So there is a huge amount of money that is exchanged during this process. So it's difficult, to go against all these lobbies, but unfortunately, these lobbies that are for surrogacy, they have a lot of money to invest into social media, into advertisements, into TV shows, into podcasts like we are doing today. They have a lot of money to invest, and so they only show the 0.001% of the cases where maybe the surrogate is a middle-class woman and not a poor woman. So they're only going to show the small, tiny cases that never exist, and they lie as well on the advertisements. They show what surrogacy isn't, and that is a beautiful, magnificent thing. A couple needs to have children, they're butterflies, love and all that stuff. And they don't show the negative sides, of course. They don't study as well on women, on surrogates, on mothers. They don't. Normally what you do is you make studies on women. You try to follow these women after the births, and the clinics should follow these women after the birth. They don't. They just, once the surrogate mother gives birth, she's left out. She's not taken care of. No one studies these people, these women, if they get cancer because of the treatments, if, I don't know, if they finish up in the streets, if we don't follow these women, and that's terrible.
What
terrible.
is a psychological emotion?
Psychological emotions.
Of
the
them
PTSD.
giving, yes.
Post-traumatic,
distress.
exactly. Yes. And that happens a lot in a lot of surrogate mothers, and we don't follow that.
Because in the case when we have women who also give their egg, their biological mothers.
Oh, yes.
So she is a mother of this child.
Yes.
And she, in the end of her pregnancy, when she gives a birth to the child, she gives child to somebody else. So this is incredible that giving away child, your own child, is something that people promote.
It's something that people promote, and it's something that I don't know when in humanity we have thought, and we thought that this was okay. At one point in humanity, do we think that selling your own child is okay? I mean, it's human trafficking. It's nothing else than human trafficking, because we are buying and selling children. We don't buy and sell slaves anymore. So why are we buying and selling children? No, of course, good.
Good.
Thank God that thank God that this we put a stop to it. But unfortunately, we are buying and selling children. It's what surrogacy is, and these women, they are so economically in situations that are hard for them that they have to go to surrogacy in order to not go to prostitution, for example, and that's terrible, terrible. And we're not in these situations. We're not treating the problem at the source. The problem is, how do we help these women? How do we make their lives easier? How do we help them find jobs that are more adequate? How do we give them money maybe to survive? We have to find...
Of course.
We have to find...
Not use them
we don't,
further.
Exactly. We can't use them and abuse of them and abuse of their situation.
And pretend it's great.
And pretend it's great, exactly. When actually we are torturing them. We are using them.
It is really incredible for me when one puts all this on the table as you did now. It's incredible that anybody can advocate for this.
I still don't understand. To be honest, I have people that are for surrogacy, and the only reason they are for surrogacy is because this is so beautiful for a couple that is infertile, because everyone has the right to have a child. But that's what I tell them. Every single time I say, but there is no right to have a child. It is written nowhere, in no text of law or in UN
International Declaration or Convention.
Exactly. There is no right to have a child. And I can't emphasize this enough. And it is very important for people to understand this. However, children have rights. Children must be protected. Exactly. We must protect them. They are the most vulnerable in this situation, and the women, of course. But we have to protect them. We have to. I mean, we have to. They have the right to know where they come from, and they have the right to be brought up by their parents.
And what
that is the Article 7 of the CRC. So
yes,
I mean, they are protected legally and internationally, but we don't apply this.
But so what? How did it happen with you?
Yes.
You have personal experience. You came to the world through surrogacy. So how have you discovered this, and can you tell us about it?
I discovered this, so when I was younger, I always grew up with the fact that in my heart something didn't click in. My life was a bit awkward. I mean, my mom didn't look like me. She was very old, much older than other mothers that I saw. All my friends' mothers, they were young, and my mother was very old, compared to the others. And so when I was younger, I always had that question. I always knew inside me that something was off, that I didn't fit in. Our relationships weren't amazing with my mother as well. My father is my biological father. And then when I was around 17 years old, I did some research. Because it was just too much. I knew something was off. I knew I had to do some research.
So you never heard anything about this?
I never heard anything.
You just felt that something is here.
That something was off. And what is incredible is that you may or not believe me, but I have people that know me and I have my medical records because during this time I went to see doctors, and every time a doctor was like, okay, well, what is your background? You know, they ask you, what is your medical background? And I say, well, I don't know. I was born via surrogacy. And they're like, the doctors are always like, oh God, she's crazy. But this is medically, I mean, I have this in my documents. I told my friends, I told everyone. But when I was 17, I knew something was off. So what I did was that I opened Google. I Googled Louisville, Kentucky is the city I was born in America.
And you had in your birth certificate, it was written that your father is your father?
My commissioning father was my father, and my commissioning mother was my mother, biologically.
And the place of birth was?
Kentucky.
Kentucky, U.S., and you live in France.
Exactly,
you lived in France.
Exactly. And the story was that my parents traveled abroad because of work, and so she had the opportunity to give birth in America, and that she told me, I mean, my parents told me this beautiful story that was completely false, of course, and I discovered that later on, but it was their story, and I had a false birth certificate. So for a long period of time, I never questioned my parents, I never questioned my birth certificate, because I seriously thought that birth certificates were not falsified. I mean, you could not falsify a birth certificate, but you can, now I know. And so 17 years old, I open Google up, I Google Louisville, Kentucky, and at first I start looking for adoption because I didn't know that surrogacy...
You suspected that you were adopted.
I suspected that I was adopted, or that maybe IVF was in... I mean, that was there was an egg donation. I knew my mother wasn't my mother. It was impossible that she was my mother. But when I Googled it and I typed IVF and I typed adoption, the first thing that came up was a surrogacy clinic. And I cannot explain to you why, but in my head, at that point in time, it clicked. And I knew I was born via surrogacy. And in my heart, and in my guts, and in my head, and it was that, and nothing else. And at that point in time, that's when my bipolar disease started developing. I'm bipolar, so I think that's what psychologists and psychiatrists say. My biological mother, who's my surrogate, she has some mental health issues, and I do believe it's genetic. But at that time, that precise time, that's when my bipolar disease started happening, because I literally just split myself into two. The Olivia that knew the truth and that knew where she came from, and the Olivia that had to pretend in front of her parents. Because I did not challenge my parents after that. I never confronted them about it. I never talked about it to them. However, I did tell everyone else about it. I told my husband that I met a few years later when I was 21. I told my mother-in-law, who's my husband's mother. I told my friends. I told my best friend. I told everyone, my doctors, and everyone knew except my parents. And so I mean, my mother-in-law, who is my husband's mother, her name is Pascal. She's always been a bit of a mother figure for me, to be honest, because she's always been very caring for me, very loving. And she saw how much I was suffering from all of this. From the
all these questions.
All these questions. Where am I from? Who am I? What are my genes? Who's my mother? Well, you know, why are you lying to me? You know, there's many questions that came into play. A lot of questions, and just not knowing where I'm from.
Linked with your identity.
Exactly.
Who you are.
Who I am. Who am I? Who is Olivia? And I had no idea. I got married to my husband. I was 23, 24. And I mean, I didn't know who I was. And then I got pregnant with my first child. And that's when things got worse, I have to say. Yes.
In a way, because this experience...
Exactly. I got pregnant and I was just like, okay, well, this baby that I'm carrying is 25%, I mean, it's 50% me, but there's 25% of my girl, she was my baby girl, she's my first one. 25% of her I don't know of. I don't know of 25% of my own child. And that's when things got worse in my head.
Because this has activated all other wounds that you have had.
Exactly. The birth, at birth, I mean, the first question was, okay, the first thing that came into my head when I gave birth to my daughter was, okay, I could never sell this child. That's the first thought I had.
After seeing this
baby, of course, I was happy of that. But the first image I had in my head was, okay, this child I could never give away, ever, for $1 million, $2 million, however much money you could put on the table, I would never give her away because she is my child. she is my baby, and I could, you know, I'm her mother, and I have to protect her. That's my duty.
So when have you faced your parents?
Oh, it comes in a lot later, because I had 3 children. And then my mother-in-law, Pascal, she offered me at my 30th birthday, because I wanted 3 children before my 30th birthday. That was the goal of my life, to be honest.
So, and you achieved
and
it?
So I achieved it. That was what I wanted. Yes.
You have beautiful children?
Oh, I'm very happy to have them, and very, very lucky. On my 30th birthday, she gifted me of a DNA kit, because I could never confront my parent without physical proof. And in my head, to be honest, I just thought that I would never confront them with the problem, because I would never have physical proof. I never thought about a DNA test. I didn't even know, and I didn't even think about it. And it's my mother-in-law, so she gifted to me, and I looked at her, and she looked at me, and she was like, "Okay, I don't know, this is awkward. Like, this is just for you, you know, so you could have maybe some answers to your questions." She gave it to me in such a nice, kind-hearted way, such a loving way, that I took it. It took me 5 days to take it, because I stood there with the DNA kit in my hand, and I was like, okay, what if I lied all my life, you know? Because my parents have been lying to me all my life, and so I thought I was a bit crazy. And so it took me 5 days to take it, and I took it, and eventually it came back. And I remember being in the bed. It was nighttime. I had my baby sleeping next to me with my husband, and I'm scrolling, and I see this DNA test come back, and I have 0% of French blood in my genes. 0. I'm not related to France in any way, shape possible, and my commissioning mother is French. 100% pure French. So already that was evidence.
That your commissioning mother is not your mother.
Is not my mother. So I go, yes! I remember going, yes! Finally, yes!
So yes, it's a confirmation that you were not crazy.
I was so happy that I was not crazy. Yes. That I knew that my gut feeling for all those years, that instinct that I had inside me was true. Which was incredible for me, because I was so happy. And then I had a lot of questions, of course. The questions, then it provoked a lot of emotions, a lot of, you know, pain, but that came afterwards. But I was very happy. And then I scrolled down, and then I saw that I had DNA. I matched my DNA with a cousin of mine, who was a cousin in America. And so I see this cousin, and I see also her father, my uncle, and they had taken that DNA test as well. So they were matched with me, because that's what they do. They take your DNA and they put it in the database, and they try to match it with all the people that have taken the DNA test. And I was matched with a cousin, and I was matched with my uncle. So in this way, you could come to your biological mother, yes, the surrogate. Exactly, and that's how I contacted that cousin, and then she brought me to my half brother, half sisters, and then I got to talk to my surrogate, my biological mother. And what's funny is that I have the entire family tree on that side, so I know everyone on that side now. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. So I know that they were Lithuanians that immigrated to America. I have a bit of Balkan blood in my blood, actually. I'm 17.5% of Balkan blood. So and Norwegian. So it was incredible. A lot, but then I had a lot of questions towards my biological mother as well, because I mean, why keep 5 children and sell your 6th one? You know, your biological mother has had 5 children. She has had 5 children, and she then she had me. Surrogacy, she had you. Yes, and she sold you. And she sold me. Yes, and you were conceived with the sperm of your my commissioning father. Yes, so my father is my father, and my biological mother is my surrogate. And there was, if I remember well, the difference in age between your parents. There's 11 years between my mother and my father. So my father was a lot younger. He was 38, 39 when he had me, and my mother was 49, 50 when she had me. So this is this difference that you mentioned, that she was older than she was mothers, a lot older than the other mothers, yes. And of your peers. Of my peers, who, they were all 30, 28, 30, 34 maybe, but my mother was more 50 than she was. So, and basically your mother was raising a daughter that her husband had with another woman. Yes. If we translate this surrogacy, all this, I mean, you were the daughter of your father and another... Exactly. And another woman. Yes. Yes, I am. And there's this... Unfortunately, I do believe that created a bit of a distance between my mother and I throughout my life. And I mean, I don't, like I always say, I don't blame them. I don't have any hatred against them. I unfortunately don't talk to them today because I took a stance against surrogacy and I unveiled the lies that have been on our family for so long. So they stopped talking to me, and I stopped talking to them. But I don't blame them. I don't. They used something that was there for them, you know?
Yes, they were wealthy enough, they were rich enough to buy a child, and they did it. Yes.
And they did it.
And this is why you think it is so important to ban surrogacy globally.
We need to ban it. We don't regulate slavery, for example. So we don't regulate the selling of children and the buying of children. There's no way possible we can regulate surrogacy. It's impossible. It's a human rights question. We need to ban it, simply.
Yes.
But
sorry to interrupt. You went back to your biological mother and surrogate,
yes.
And you said that I interrupted. You said that you couldn't understand how is that she gave you away and she has kept another 5 children.
Yes, that was my main question. I had a few main questions for her. That was one question. The second question was how the pregnancy went and how my birth went. Those were the 3 questions I had that were really important to me as a person. And that once I had those questions answered, very honestly, we stopped talking.
Yes, I understand.
Because I wasn't looking for a second mother. I didn't need a mother in my life at that point. And so her answer was...
You have Pascal.
Yes, I had Pascal, exactly. I had mother figures in my life that were enough, largely enough. And
I'm so glad you have such a good mother-in-law.
Yes, she's amazing. I owe a lot. And her son as well, my husband is. I owe a lot to him as well. But my surrogate mother, what she did, so she had her 5 children. Unfortunately, her 5th children died of a tragic domestic accident. After that, I do believe she had a hard time finding a job. You know, she had 4 other children to take care of. After that, you fall into depression. Of course, you feel bad after that.
And she was raising her children on her own.
No, she had multiple husbands. So you know, it was.
I understand. It was not. There was no support system.
There was no support system. She was very alone. And I don't blame her either. You know,
no.
It's kind of, she was preyed on. I feel like she's a victim as well.
I agree.
You know, I don't consider myself a victim, but I'm a collateral damage. You know, she's a victim because she then had to use surrogacy. My parents paid a lot of money. They offered them a Disney trip. My parents were, you know, they were nice. They offered a lot of money. They offered a lot of extras. And so she came and she told me that she did surrogacy because she had lost a child, and that for God, as a gift to an infertile couple, she needed to give them a child because she had lost a son, which is not compatible, which makes no sense, to be honest.
No, it doesn't.
Especially when she says that she did it for God, and she did it when we know very well that the church is against surrogacy.
Yes.
The Pope said that he's against surrogacy. We know that the church is against surrogacy, so her speech doesn't make any sense. We know, you can see behind the story that there's a money issue. So she was preyed on. It was an easy money, not easy because the shots that she has to go through, the pregnancy, the birth. You have to do that. It's very difficult to be a surrogate and also to give away your child. But that's the only option she had.
And how did she react to you coming to her?
Because she came to me. Yes, because I didn't want to go to her. I didn't want to go to her first because I didn't want to violate her privacy. I didn't want to,
You contacted the cousin?
I contacted the cousin. Then I had a very good relationship with my half-brother. He took me in immediately. Adorable. Oh my gosh. I always wished for brothers and sisters. So when I knew I had all these brothers and sisters, I was just so happy. Then I met my half-sisters who are, I only met 2 because the third one, she's a lot of difficulties as well. So I didn't really talk to her. But 2 other half-sisters, amazing. I talked to my aunt. I talked to, my cousin, and they took me to they gave my Facebook name to to my biological mother. And then we had a discussion on Facebook Messenger about everything. It was insane. It was, and I was very happy to have answers to my questions, to be honest. That was the most important thing, because I was in a point in time where I had 3 children, but I still didn't know who I was. And it's difficult to understand. Oh, it's helped me tremendously. And it's also helped my relationship with my children, because I wasn't the perfect mother for them at that point in time, because I was still searching for who I am, you know, who I was. And I can't teach my children who to be if I don't know who I am. It was terrible.
And also, this what you explained, the fact that you felt something throughout your life, and this was, and you were convinced all the time that this is not the truth. This is really something that is so difficult.
Oh, it's terrible.
When you know, I was focused when I firstly heard your story on these facts about the relationship with your mother, that your biological mother, all these elements. But in the end, even if all this one would say was okay, and it was not, but the fact that you growing up have had this obviously true feeling.
Yes.
And that you were told all the time, no, it's not. It is actually, it brings person to question anything that one feels inside as truth.
Of
yes?
course. It was, I still can't believe it sometimes.
Yes.
Sometimes thank God I have proof. Medical proof.
Yes.
My husband, my mother-in-law, I have my friends, I have everyone. No, I mean, I told everyone. So yes. that was what was incredible. And I mean, everyone knew I was saying the truth as well. I mean, no one ever said, oh no, you're lying.
Yes. But then when you got this medical proof,
yes,
the test, you know, but I can just imagine how difficult it was for you in
I thought I was
adolescence.
Crazy. No, but yes, I thought I was crazy.
I
went through phases where I didn't know who I was. I didn't know if I was telling the truth. I didn't know if I was crazy. So I did drugs. I did alcohol. I went through depression. I went through suicide attempts. I went through, scarification. I went through a lot of different phases where, because
damaging oneself.
Yes. Exactly. I was trying to kill. I was trying to destroy myself. I was literally trying to put an end to my life, because in multiple ways, because I knew, I had this double phase where I knew the truth, but I was told differently. And so I didn't know where I was. I was just lost, completely lost. And then, then I found my husband, and then he helped me a lot throughout the process. But even when I met him, it's so difficult. Psychologically speaking, but just the mind, just having to always say, okay, no, you're telling,
But one starts to suspicion oneself in every field. If one is told a lie about something that one feels so intensively as you felt, that something is wrong in relation with your mother.
Yes.
And here. So if you as a child are being convinced, no, this what you feel so strongly is a lie, then you as a child start to doubt everything what you feel. And this is for me so terrible that has happened to you. Actually, and I'm so glad you managed through all these steps.
Yeah, well,
to find a solution. Yeah, and it is generous of your biological mother that in the end she contacted you.
Yes,
and answered to all your.
I honestly say I'm very thankful for that, because she could have forgotten about me, and but she told me that she never forgot about me.
Of course,
she told me, because I was born exactly in between my commissioning mother and my surrogate mother, my biological mother. My surrogate mother is born on the 15th of December. My commissioning mother is born on the 5th of December, and I was born on the 10th of December. So every year she said that she would wish me a happy birthday, that she thought of me, that she told me that she couldn't believe that she found me. She was very happy.
Yes, and it's incredible that one does all this on purpose to woman and the child. It is terrible things happen in life. We lose mothers, children, but it happens
that we can't stop people from abandoning their children, or deaths. I mean, some parents die, and then the child is unfortunately in the middle and is an orphan. There are things in life we can't stop, but surrogacy we can stop.
Exactly.
There's a way of stopping this. Yes, there's huge amounts of money involved. Okay, but we can stop it. Of course. It's just a question of money and interests, but that's why I joined the Declaration of Casablanca, is because I truly believe in that text. I know that we can find an international convention. We can find solutions internationally and nationally, because this is why we're in Croatia today, because we need to spread the word that in Croatia, the country needs to take a law against surrogacy, to ban it completely. You use surrogacy.
As killing or stealing is banned.
Exactly,
yes.
Exactly. Of course.
Yes.
I mean,
there have to be consequences for doing different actions.
Exactly. You are doing something wrong.
Sanctioned.
You're sanctioned. In Italy, they're trying to penalize it. They're trying to criminalize the use of surrogacy, not just in the country, but for Italians that go abroad and then go and buy a baby and come back with a baby.
Or
exactly.
Ukraine or
they go and use a woman abroad and then come back with a baby. That's too easy.
Yes.
That's just too easy. So Italy is really trying to take a stance on this politically, and I find this fascinating. And I mean, we are the politics that are in, that are at the head of the government now, that the president, we like them or we don't like them. I don't care what they do on other subjects, to be honest.
Of course,
but on
your
this,
subject
my
is
subject is surrogacy. Whether you're right,
yes.
left wing, center, whether you're a feminist, whether you're gay, whatever. I don't care. I only treat about surrogacy. I don't treat about other questions.
Because it is so damaging.
Because it is so damaging to the children, to the woman, and it's a human rights question. It's a human rights problem. It's above everything. We must place this above everything.
And just to, I agree with you. And just to come to this, to understand better, when you, after you met your biological mother, you did face your parents.
I didn't face my parents directly.
Okay.
No. What happened was that my husband actually faced my parents for me, kind of situation. It
was too difficult for you.
It was too difficult for me, and I knew they were going to lie anyways, even with the physical proof, to be honest. And I was right, because they lied to my husband after that. And it was only after a certain amount of time, my father came to me, and we talked in the parking lot of their place without my mother. And he said, yes, you're right. He said, you are correct. You are born via surrogacy. Yes, I went to America. Yes, I used this lady. Yes, I did this. And he admitted to everything. And which was a relief for me. Of course, I still have a lot of questions for him, but unfortunately, I'll never be able to have the answers now.
Maybe you
or
will.
Maybe I will one day, but
in the end, have you had opportunity to explain to him what all this did to you, or not?
No, what I did, and this is kind of, it's not good or bad, but it was my way of healing myself, is that I took social media as a therapeutic way to say things that I didn't want to say in front of them. So I said it in front of a camera. So I took social media, I took TikTok, and I started speaking about all the harms that surrogacy has caused me as a child, and how surrogacy causes big problems for women as well. So I'm fighting on both sides, because I am a woman as well.
Of course, and you can understand
very well. I love
well.
women. I am sensible to the to the cause of women, to the rights of women. This is something I'm very passionate about. So I use TikTok to say everything aloud, say everything that I thought aloud on that platform. And they didn't see, my commissioning parents didn't see, my parents didn't see the videos just yet. It took them a month and a half for someone to tell them that I was doing these videos. And that's when everything exploded. That's when everything exploded, because they were very angry at me that I was exposing all of the lies that they had been told, that they have been saying, to everyone for the last 31 years. And yes, so it's been bad since then.
But I think it is very valuable, the fact that you opened this angle to this question. I always felt that, and I knew that surrogacy is wrong because of women, and I felt always, and I knew always, and that it is exploiting women and the rights of children to know their identity, their roots. But I never thought so deeply about this, what you explained through your testimony. So I'm happy it was for you therapeutical, but for all of us, For all of us, it is very beneficial and precious
Yes.
to understand this struggle.
Because I think the problem is that we immediately think, oh, she was bought, she's in a wealthy household, she's
Happy.
going to have everything. Yes, I had everything. I had everything. I had the education, I had the clothes, I had the food, I had the nice households, I had the trips, I traveled a lot. Okay, yes, I was very comfortable financially speaking, but I lacked of love. I lacked of love of parents. I craved a mother. Throughout my entire life, I craved a mother figure. So much that it has caused me so many problems with my relationships with women, because I was always looking for the mother in the woman. And so, of course, they weren't my mother. So, of course, the relationships always ended really, really badly. But I was always craving that mother figure, and I was always craving the parental figures, you know? And so we assume that these children are born in wealthy households, they're going to have a perfect life. But that's not true. We can't assume that just because there's money behind. Money doesn't heal all problems. It makes life easier, okay, but it doesn't heal all problems. And that's, I think, what people don't understand today, is that it's not because there's money that the kids are going to be happy. That's usually the comments I get, the critiques I get when I do my videos or when I speak. They're like, oh, well, Olivia, you were born in a wealthy household, you were happy. Well, you don't know anything about my life. You have no idea what I went through. You have no idea what I felt. You have no idea how much I craved a mom all my life. You have no idea how deeply that hurt, because that hurts, craving your mom. Because I knew she wasn't my mother. So I knew I had another mother. And I knew I was craving that mother that I didn't have. I needed her. That was the woman I needed.
Yes, and also this question of identity, of who I am.
Oh, of course, yeah, who I am.
Now you have discovered that you have Swedish or Lithuanian.
Yes,
you know,
Norwegian.
Sorry,
Yes.
Norwegian. Yes, it's not as you said, this feeling of not knowing.
Not knowing who you are. You can't construct yourself if you don't know where you've come from. It's impossible. It is literally impossible. You can't construct yourself. If the foundations are wrong, if they're off, if they're not perfect, then your life is always going to be crooked, you know?
Yes, I understand.
You're always going to be leaning on something, or you need a crutch to survive. That's what I say. I always needed a crutch. So it's either medication or, it's always drugs, alcohol. Those were my crutches throughout my life, unfortunately. And I used the wrong crutches, of course. I could have used other crutches, but it was how it had to be. But I got through it, and
it's great that
I got through it. And
that you are willing now to help others, not to continue doing the same thing.
There are two things I want with my testimony and with everything that we're doing with the Declaration of Casablanca. There are two things that I want. One is maybe to stop, maybe even if it's just one woman to become a surrogate because of my word. You know,
who will say no, I will not do it.
Okay, that story that story is traumatizing. I would never inflict that on a child. You know, if I can stop one woman from becoming a surrogate, if I can stop commissioning parents from buying children, if I can, that's my goal. That's my goal. On top of course, finding international solutions to stop it worldwide, and of course, national solutions for countries to ban surrogacy plainly and simply inside of the country.
Thank you very much for coming to Croatia and for sharing with us your experience, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
With
Thank
your
you for
family
having me.
and
Yes.
with doing all this great job that you're doing.
I'm happy. I'm at a good place today. Thank you.
Hvala vama na pozornosti i ja vas pozdravljam do sljedeće prilike.